Hello and welcome to the Wellness Connection podcast with Fiona Kane. I'm your host, Fiona Kane. Today I'm going to be talking to you about a recent study. So there's a recent study that's been published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, so the BMJ, and it's talking about the effectiveness of physical activity interventions for improving depression, anxiety, distress, and overall systematic reviews. Essentially, it's about exercise and what it does for mental health, what it does for your mood and for your anxiety. So that's the shorter way of saying it. So essentially, this was a really, really big study. So it was a study where let me just look at here to sort of explain what it was. So it was a study where they looked at 97. They did 97 reviews of a whole bunch of trials. So that was like over 1,000 trials, thousands of participants. And so it was a really big review of all of the studies that have been done so far. And the conclusion, I'll read the conclusion and then I'll discuss it. But the conclusion was that physical activity is highly beneficial for improving symptoms of depression, anxiety, and distress across a wide range of adult populations, including the general population, people with diagnosed mental health disorders, and people with chronic disease. Physical activity should be a mainstay approach in the management of depression, anxiety, and psychological distress. So that's its sort of recommendations that physical activity should be recommended, and any physical activity is beneficial. Anything is better than nothing. So I think it's actually just really important to bring this up because they even they compared physical activity to medications, and they found that physical activity works better than medications. Now, I will just stop for a moment and say I'm not telling anyone to stop taking medications. In fact, I advise that you don't just stop taking medications. It's quite a dangerous thing to do. So if you choose to stop taking medications, you do it under your doctor's supervision. But what I would say to you is that it shows you that because we think of the medication as being the cure-all, when exercise can be very, very helpful indeed, if not more helpful in some cases. So I think it's just important to include exercise as part of your treatment, and medication may be needed or it may not, but you bring the exercise in early on, and then you work with your doctor about whether or not the medication is the right thing for you. But the good thing about exercise is, generally speaking, there's no bad side effects unless you injure yourself or something like that. But in general, just doing kind of the basic exercise is a really good thing, and and it's and for so many reasons. So just besides the fact that often it means you're getting outside and you're getting some vitamin D from the sunshine. We know vitamin D is really important for depression, and you're getting and you're just when we go outside, like of course you can do inside exercise as well. So this actually does include, whether or not you're doing like a little workout at home based on an app or whatever you're watching online, or if you're just doing some stretches every day, or if you put on your favorite song and just dance around and you're not doing anything formal. So that's all really beneficial as well. So the outside bit doesn't have to be the case, but just pointing out with the outside bit, the good thing about the outside bit is you are getting, when we go outside, even looking up, we know can be really beneficial for our mood because we're looking down and we got our posture. So actually just going outside and you look up and you look at the sky and you look at the clouds, and you notice the birds and the trees and the butterflies and whatever. So just there's something about that just reminds us that when we're kind of alone and inside and whatever, it can be very just about us. So when we go outside, there's other people, there's a world out there. We're actually quite small and, as part of the world. And it kind of just gives us, I suppose, an ability to see that we're not the world's a bigger place, get perspective, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. So going outside is really, really beneficial. It's actually pouring rain right now. I don't know if you can hear this on the microphone or not, but just got distracted. It suddenly got very dark and it's pouring rain. Talking about looking outside at the sunshine. Uh, Anyway, so what we know is that even just going outside and just looking up, looking at the sky and whatever, and getting amongst it, getting vitamin D is really great, as well as the exercise. And this study was specifically looking at the exercise itself. And the exercise, it's the endorphins, and it's you feeling strong when you do exercise, and when you feel a bit fitter, you feel healthier, you feel better. But when we move our body, we kind of move toxins through our system. We keep our bowels going. Doing exercise uses energy, but it also gives you energy. Also, when you're doing exercise, you feel like you're showing up for yourself. You're practicing self-care. So you're doing something that's good for you, that's supportive of you and your health. So there's a whole bunch of emotional reasons, physical reasons, reasons to do with potentially being outdoors or whatever. There's so many reasons that add up to exercise being really, really beneficial. And look, I would also say in regards to going back to sort of the medication thing too, I've had this conversation. I remember in particular a friend who was in trouble a few years ago, and I've seen this a few times, where sometimes you are so overwhelmed. There's so much going on. You are in such a state of, I can't even think of the word, but it could be a mania, or it could be just a, like you're just in that adrenaline state. And sometimes when people are in that state, they cannot plan, they cannot do exercise or plan eating protein, or like they just can't even think straight. So in that situation, obviously, sometimes for people, also medication first is a good idea. Not always, and it's different with everyone. And I'm not the expert on the medication, by the way. You talk to the people who that's a job. It's not my job, just an observation for me. But sometimes people do need medication just to calm them down. So sometimes if you're just so overwhelmed and so you can't even think straight, then you need some sort of medication to sort of calm you down enough or straighten you out enough so that you can plan things like food and exercise and all of those things. So don't think, because sometimes people think, oh no, I've got to do the exercise and the diet and this and that and whatever, because I know it's what I need to do. But if you just physically can't, because your brain just won't allow you to, because it's just so hyped up or whatever, then sometimes the solution, at least the short-term solution, is some sort of medication under supervision, obviously support from a therapist of some kind, and getting you to a place where you're calm enough and able to think straight and plan things, and then you can then sort of say, okay, I'm going to put these things into action. So if you're early enough and you're not in that situation, then I would suggest you put all of these things in first. But if it's dire and you're really struggling, don't struggle more to trying to make it perfect, to put everything into place. Just go and get the help you need, get some medication, calm it down. Then you can put some things into place, because you just can't do it. If you can't do it, you can't do it. That's fine. And the other thing too with exercise is, don't get, like, people get caught up on, oh, it means I have to go to the gym or do this or do that. No, it just means movement, right? So that can look like a million different things, and that can certainly be done at home, and it can certainly be about getting up and down off your chair and just holding on to holding on when you do it so you don't fall, or doing push-ups against a wall, or, like I said, putting your favorite song on and just dancing around the room. There's not sort of don't get caught up on, it means 45 minutes at the gym every morning, or it means boot camp at 5 a.m. every day. It can mean those things, absolutely, but it doesn't have to mean those things. And also, then I have talked about this before, but I thought I would just sort of add in there as sort of a reminder some of the other things that can be useful as far as helping treat your mental health. So one is a gratitude diary. Certainly, any ability to have gratitude, the more we sit in the place of gratitude, the more we can feel grateful for things, and we can see beneficial things or see positive things. So you see what you look for, and if what you look for is, if you're looking for opportunities, if you're looking for proof that there's beauty in the world and there's wonderful things, you will see that. But if you're looking for confirmation that the world's all bad and it's all going to hell, you'll also see that, because both is there. There's always sort of both things there at one time. That's the beauty, or the challenge, or the reality of the world. However, you can just choose to only see one and not see the other. So I think I've used the example before, but it's the example of, there's a disaster and we see the disaster, but then we don't see the people who help, and the people, when you see later on, when you see footage or information or documentaries, films or whatever about some disastrous, horrible thing that happened, what you often see is great stories of people, courage. And like I just recently saw, now I can't remember the name of the film, but Sir Anthony Hopkins was in this film, something. And anyway, it's a film about a British man during World War II who was able to get a lot of Jewish children out of, I think it was, were they no, was it Poland or Belgium? I can't remember now. It might have been Poland. But essentially, he saved a whole bunch of children from what would have been a terrible fate, and basically got them adopted into homes in the UK until, hopefully, after the war, some of them might have still had family and were able to go back, and maybe many of them weren't. But anyway, he helped, I think, hundreds of children, and really, like World War II. I mean, we could talk about all terrible and awful things that happened, but something of beauty like that happens, right? So the world, there's always both happening. That there's terrible things and there's disastrous things, but then there's beautiful people and kind people and brave people, and just wonderful things that happen. And there's beauty in the world, and there's beautiful things, and there's awful things. It's all there. So, or what happens often when we're depressed or when we're feeling down, is that we only see the negative stuff. And look, I'll include myself as well, because as anyone who knows who's been listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, that I've had a fair bit of sort of grief over a few deaths in my family and friends and things in the last few years. Um, I have my moments. I really have my moments, and sometimes I'll be out at lunch with some friends or something, and I'll just later on I'll hear back what I said and what I was talking about, and I'm so depressing to be around sometimes. So I'm not. This is not a judgment on anyone. It's just the way it is. That when we have a lot of negative things, or things that we perceive as negative, or just we're having a tough time of it, or all sorts of things, we can end up just only seeing bad. And it's just a reminder, like, just to start to hear yourself too, and to look for something good. And it may need lots of therapy and medication and lots of things. It depends on what's going on for you and why you're feeling that way. But yeah, it is important to look for beauty, look for good things, because good things do happen. There's heroes in situations, not just bad guys. So it's just look for those things in the world, look for proof that there's those things in the world, because it is there. If you look for it, you will find it. Uh, Also, just things like connection. Connection is so important. Making friends, and finding the right friends for you, and understanding that sometimes there are seasons in life, and so there are seasons for jobs. There might be seasons for friendships and relationships. Sometimes these things change, but so if you don't have a friend circle at the moment, either reconnect with an old circle, or connect with someone new, or go to some sort of group or some sort of interest group. But connection is really important. And when you go out and talk to other people and realize there's other people that experience the same things as you, it can be really good. As long as your group is a some of the groups I've seen on Facebook that I've gone into are super negative. So if you're in a group that's just all about, let's just all be victims forever, and we can't be responsible for anything in our lives, it's all just happened to us, and let's all just sit here and be victims, I don't think that's a good group. You can certainly all talk about your tough time and how hard it is, and anyone who's watched and seen any of my stuff will know that I talk about the importance of having a moment of being a victim. Like, it is okay to feel really awful, and to feel really bad, and to feel like you're a victim and it's not fair, and all of those things. That's absolutely valid. I just don't recommend that people live there. It's an experience you have. It's a feeling that you have, and you work through it, or you get help to work through it. But you just don't live there forever. That's all. So it's not that it's not valid to have those feelings and experiences. It's just not helpful to live there. You can choose to, but it's really not helpful, and it doesn't really make for a happy and healthy life. Um, the other thing that I wanted to mention as well, there's a couple of things in regards to terms and terminology. So I was listening to a podcast this morning, and there was a psychologist on that podcast, and she actually said that, I might not get it exactly right. I won't name her in case I'm sort of getting it slightly wrong, but the essence of what she said was that good mental health is not the absence of feeling bad feelings, or feeling bad, or sad feelings, or something along those lines. It's not the absence of difficulty. So, good mental health is not the absence of anything bad happening, or any difficulty in your life, or any difficult feelings. And it's not, and so good mental health isn't happiness. So, because a lot of people they get confused about what good mental health is, and they think that if you have good mental health, it must mean that you're just happy all the time, and you never have any challenges, and you never have bad feelings or bad thoughts or feel bad or anything like that. That's simply not true. So, good mental health is not whether or not you ever have any of those feelings, it's how you manage them. So, if you feel enraged and angry, good mental health is when you know how to work through those feelings and not going out and smashing someone, right? Good mental health is when you have an argument with someone, or a debate or a discussion, and you're able to walk away and kind of go, hey, we disagree, but that's fine. And you're not taking it personally, and you're not getting all aggro about them, and you're not, those sorts of things. That's one that I've had challenges with over the years, I will admit. I get very excitable in different debates and things. And sometimes I've had learning, and I've had to learn how to kind of just, you know, cool down and calm down and just be okay that other people have a different opinion. I can find that hard sometimes. And it's just, again, admitting that some things I have challenges with. So, we're all flawed. We're human beings. We're flawed. And it's not so much, it's not me kind of thing, sort of diagnosing that and turning it into a pathology. It's just me recognizing some things about myself and being aware and working through that and learning how to do that better. So the truth is that, having good mental health is just about how you manage life, because the truth is that, like I was talking about before, good and bad things are in life. Good and bad things happen in life. Life is a mixture of lots of things, and it can be really, really tricky, and it can be hard to find your way in it. And things change, and you have traumatic experiences, or grief experiences, or your failures and whatever. But you also can have successes, and you can have love, and you can have fun, and you can have be curious, and you can learn, and you can, all the different things. It's just that it's all there. Life is all of the things. And I think it's when you good mental health is, one, just knowing that it's all of the things. It's all of the things. You're not succeeding or failing. It's just wherever you are in the, I think my mentor Shandu, who's been on the podcast before, we talk about it being snakes and ladders, and life is like that. It literally is a game of snakes and ladders. So you'll kind of be doing really well, and you'll be really pleased with yourself, and I'm so evolved, and I'm so healthy, and then you're not, because something happens that absolutely reminds you that you're not as evolved as you thought you were, or life just happens and it just brings you down, and I know that certainly and some of these things are just things you have just no control over, and then suddenly just a terrible event happens, or a really upsetting event, or whatever it is, and it really knocks you over, knocks you for a six, and it can take you days, weeks, months, years to really get back up again, depending on the situation, depending on you. Life is just life is all the things, and it's all of the colors, and it's all of the shades. And so good mental health is actually understanding that. It's accepting that, just an acceptance of that it is what it is. That is just how life is. And rather than getting rather than getting too judgmental about what stage you're at, and this is another one for me, it's like, oh, I don't know, I should have been over this 5-6 years ago, how come I'm still going on about this thing? I'm really, I annoy myself sometimes, because I feel like I haven't gotten past something, or moved on from something, or learned something, or achieved whatever it is. I get really frustrated with myself, but I'm learning, a lot of it's about just accepting the process and accepting where you're at. And if you're at where you're at, that's where you're at now. And you can work on moving forward, but part of moving forward is also just an acceptance of where you are right now. And we can get really frustrated with that, or ourselves, or the situations. It is what it is. And so having that acceptance, knowing that it is what it is. It doesn't mean there's nothing you can do, but having acceptance of where it is now, and doing what you can to move forward as you can, at whatever speed you're able to, depending on what resources you have around you, and learning how to roll with it, rather than being thrown around all over the place. And actually, one of the examples, or one of the to picture this in your mind, again, referring back to my mentor, Shandu, she talks about being in your boat or being outside of your boat. And if you think of like you and your life, and that you have this boat that you travel in, and we've all got our own boats, and it doesn't mean we can't connect up with each other's boats or move about, but essentially we've got our own boat. What often happens is we end up outside of the boat. So we fall out, or we get out to go and rescue someone over there or whatever, but we end up outside of the boat, and then we wonder why we're just getting thrown around everywhere. And we've got to remember to just get back inside our boat. And part of that is just to know what's yours and what's not, and to know what you can control and what you can't. And really, a lot of the boat analogy is around self-care. So it's around, eating protein and eating plenty of veggies and drinking plenty of water, and the exercise that I was talking about before, the movement. And it might be meditation or relaxation, or going and having therapy or whatever it is that you need to do. But it's self-care and making sure you get enough sleep, all of those things. So getting back in your boat, a lot of it is around just like it's kind of grounding yourself. Is a bit weird in a boat analogy, but it's practicing the self-care and getting back into the self-care routine and looking after yourself. And some people need more than others. They really need to practice a hell of a lot of self-care to stay sort of okay. And some people need more, like at different times we might need more than others. Certainly there's times where I need a lot more and I've really got to focus on it. It needs to be my main focus. And there's other times where I can not be quite as focused on it, but I can't completely let go of self-care because things fall apart pretty quickly for me, physically and emotionally, actually. So, mental health is kind of more about learning to roll with it, learning to kind of roll, rather than getting dumped by every wave. It's kind of going with it, and then kind of working out where to from here. And even just the word mental health, because I was just looking up the definition of mental health, because when you say mental health, people often think mental health means like you're mental, like there's something wrong with you. And that, I know that's a very judgmental saying that, but it's just a statement of how people relate to a certain word. So I'm not saying that people are mental or whatever, but yeah, I think you'll understand what I'm saying. Forgive me for how I've just said that, but they just relate the word mental health to meaning that there's something wrong. All right, which is a better way of saying what I just said. And essentially, mental health, I'm just reading a definition here. It's a person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being. And a big part of assessments when you are assessing, diagnosing people with mental health issues, it's not whether or not they have certain thoughts and feelings, but it's also how they deal with them, how they manage them. So yeah, the word mental health is just talking about your how you're managing life, essentially emotionally. And we get better mental health when we practice lots of self-care, and we learn how to go with it more than rather than fight against it, because life is life and it's snakes and ladders, and stuff happens. So the more that you learn to sort of go with it and go with the flow. Going with the flow doesn't mean you can't make decisions along the way and take different turns and whatever, but it just means that sometimes if you're on that wave and it's like you can't get off, what you need to do is just protect yourself till you land on shore, and then the next step. So sometimes you just can't control that or how long that's going to go for, because that is life sometimes. So anyway, getting back to the beginning of this is just the effectiveness of moving your body in regards to your mental health, for anxiety, for depression, and all of that. I just cannot emphasize it enough. Please move your body, and if you need support or help around that, see a health professional. So whether or not it's an exercise physiologist or your physio or your personal trainer, but if you need to sort of see someone to get help around it because you have issues around that, or issues with your ability or your function or whatever, then just get support around what that might look like for you. I think anything is better than nothing. So rather than kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater and say, I can't do this, so I can't do it. It's like, well, again, I've talked about this before, but it's like, what can you do? And maybe you need advice around that, and that's fine. Get professional advice. Anyway, I hope that this has helped point out to you a little bit more about mental health, the way we look at it, and what we can do to support our mental health, and just really emphasize to you the importance of the studies say it over and over and over again. And this is a big study that looked at the whole lot, the importance of moving your body, movement in regards to managing your mental health and having good mental health. Anyway, I will leave it at that. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, and if you're on Rumble or YouTube, you're welcome to comment as well. And I will see you all again next week. Thank you. Bye.